Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs, market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. This week on Analysis, we discuss building digital real estate via social media. Now, interestingly enough, the number of social media users in Malaysia is expected to reach 29.3 million by the end of 2024. So most of these users access social media through mobile devices. We're talking Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok as being the most popular platforms. So when we understand these preferences, businesses can tailor their social media strategies for maximum impact. Now, also, it was estimated that in 2023, social media advertising spending in Malaysia amounted to a whopping 1.5 billion ringgit. By 2029, this amount is forecast to increase to more than 2.6 billion ringgit. Additionally, Communications Minister Fahmi Fadzil recently highlighted that last year, it was estimated Facebook alone earned 600 million USD from the Malaysian market. Staggering numbers. Now, with AI being increasingly used to automate and optimize social media campaigns, local entrepreneurs and startups can find their brand identity by telling Malaysian stories to remain memorable and profitable in this key sector for business sustainability. Niaga Spotlight is looking forward to gaining these insights from none other than Richard Kerr, who is Chief Storyteller with RK Digital, who joins me now live in the studios. Richard, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time to join us. How are you today?
Good morning, Tamina. Very good, very good.
Fantastic. Yes. All right. So, Richard, I actually wanted to ask you to basically get us started off by looking at how social media is actually a place, as you deem it in your language, building real estate. Now, how is it that we can actually frame a brand having an identity and also claiming its stake even as a social media presence? Tell me about strategy and planning.
Right. So if you look at the current context of social media today, it is very much different how it was built many, many years ago. It has evolved, throughout at least 20 years, right, since the whole social media thing started. So basically, it is a place for brands to build their presence. And it is also a place for people to actually socialize. That's why they call it social media, right? So it is actually a place for, for businesses to build their presence online. And of course, for businesses specifically, it helps them to market their products. And of course, by marketing, that leads to sales as well. But at the same time, there are also instances where people leverage on it to build their personal branding. Just like what I do, basically.
Exactly. So I think it's really interesting that you have charted the arc of social media all the way from when it was a nascent technology to today when it's almost omnipresent in our life.
Correct.
Now, one interesting factor that I think sets Malaysian audiences apart is not only do we have cheap and accessible internet that has increasingly become nationwide as far as coverage goes, including, of course, not only rural Malaysia, but also East Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak. Right. And additionally, we are quite online, meaning which we spend upwards of an average of 7 to 8 hours online daily. Out of that, almost 3 hours daily are spent just on our social media apps. So when we're talking about target audiences, is there a way in which businesses can then further syncretize who the messaging is going out towards? Because it's not just for everybody. It still has to be for somebody specific, right?
That's
depending on what business you own.
That's correct. So there's a bit of shift in mindset, I would like to say, from this context, right? Because typically businesses, when they said, we're going to do something on social media and we're going to target our audience directly. But as you know, the online consumption of information has changed over the years. So I feel that businesses need to think slightly different today. Instead of like targeting their audiences in the beginning, they need to be creating some sort of content that goes to a wide range of audiences first.
Right. Yeah. So basically start from the top of the funnel and then slowly go down.
That's right. That's right. Because there's a philosophy here, right? Because if you're creating a content that is specifically targeting your targeted audience directly, there's a chance that the algorithm wouldn't push your content, because for many people when they see it, so it's not relevant with me, so and then that content will just go into the to the recycle bin of the whole platform.
Right, understood.
Right.
Okay, so basically starting off from a broad standpoint, but then going into a funnel.
That's
so at the same time as well, last week Malaysia did also introduce the fact that we are going to start off with a regulatory framework
yes.
and licensing for social media
Yes,
platforms,
that's correct.
which will be enforced from the 1st of January next year.
Yes.
Upwards. What are your initial thoughts having heard of this? Was it something that you received with trepidation, excitement, or neutral? Tell me why.
For me, I feel it's neutral because, as you know, any technology, right, they need to evolve. And as you know, technology like social media or anything like what's out there, they evolve very quickly, but a lot of times regulations will need time to catch up. So for me, it is not a big deal because as long as you have that common sense, you know what to post, I think people shouldn't be worrying too much. So that's what I feel.
Yes, absolutely. At least from a business standpoint.
That's correct,
right?
yes.
Okay, we'll go a bit deeper into that, but later, moving into looking at content creation per se, Richard. Now, I was interested in asking you because you've had a lot of experience with not only creating as an individual, but also as your responsibility behind RK Digital.
Yes,
so
correct.
what kind of content appears to be resonating most with Malaysian audiences? And are they more discerning because of the fact that we do spend a fair bit of time online?
So in general, right, if you look at the whole content creation industry, it started very, very much early. You can say it as early as back in the 90s. That's when we started, developing websites. But of course, it has evolved throughout the years.
Sure.
So in general, I think it depends on the interest of the audiences. So people, might want to follow accounts that talks about news, and some people in politics. But in general, as you can see, if you're able to create content that touches various types of topics, I think that would resonate with most Malaysians. And of course, as you know today, people have very short attention span. Probably, I think it's much shorter than the goldfish.
So less than 5 seconds,
Less
right?
than
You
5
need your
seconds.
hook. Yeah.
Yeah, so you need that hook. And of course, today, people uses a lot of short videos. And that's what we focus on a lot, actually, because, platforms, all the social media platforms out there, they push out content, especially short videos, to a wide range of audiences, even to non-followers. So, for example, if we were to create a content about restaurant, right? So with that restaurant content, if it's interesting enough, it gets pushed to people who have really no idea about your business. So they get to see your content. And if they find it interesting, they will follow your content. And that's actually how you can build your funnel and, of course, convert them to customers.
Exactly. So we're talking about organic growth as well. Another topic, though, when it comes to content, right, is the fact that all businesses now have their presence across various social media channels.
That's correct, yes.
Is there any thought process behind the brand messaging being consistent across platforms, or would you actually recommend catering it specifically for the platform that you're on?
I feel there's a need to cater for each platform, especially because if you look at TikTok, for example, right?
Okay, sure. One of the highest growth platforms, right?
Highest, it's the fastest growth. It's even for us, when we do content for our clients, we actually advocate to do on TikTok as well because it focuses on short videos. But if you look at other platforms like X, then it's more text-based. So you have to somewhat cater the kind of content that you want to create for different platforms.
Understood.
Yeah.
But because you were focusing on the fact that it's usually short videos, can you tell an effective story with these short formats?
For sure. I think if you look at storytelling, right, for in general, because that's what we focus on basically. So we differentiate ourselves from all the marketing agencies out there by focusing on storytelling. Storytelling is really about having the hero's journey. So hero's journey basically, of course, you're going to have the hook first, then you're going to introduce the hero, and he will go through, or he or she will go through the ups and downs, and finally there will be sort of like a stage where
a goal reached or something triumphant.
That's right.
Okay,
so
all right.
If you run a business, it is the same when you talk about your customers, because your customer are the heroes basically, because you're offering a service to them or product, they're taking them on a journey of transformation. So So you can find from this angle, and how can you transform that into a story?
Interesting. That just reminds me of the fact that almost anything can go viral. I'm thinking about, you know, those viral AI cat videos that are actually super popular across so many platforms.
Yes, that's correct.
One of them which literally shows a funny incident where an AI cat drops their handphone into a wash bowl.
Yeah.
It has about 70, 80 million views on YouTube.
Crazy views,
so almost anything can get you over there, right?
Yes.
So now let's move on into talking engagement and growth. What are some strategies which you generally recommend for brands to employ because they are looking for genuine follower count and engagement?
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that you're able to do this maybe once a month. Would it be preferable to have it staggered over the entire month rather than just have one fantastic video a month?
Because, as I mentioned earlier, right, because short videos are the fastest way for growth for any businesses. So that is why we focus a lot on short videos actually, because it is what the algorithm of across all the different platforms anyway for today. So even if you think about from the platform X context, you know, initially it was, you know, text-based. So since it was taken over by Elon Musk, they change a lot in the algorithm as well. Sometimes they prioritize short videos and those kind of things. So I believe businesses today, they need to focus on short videos.
Okay.
And because of that, because, you know, those videos will be pushed to followers and non-followers, right? So I feel they need to be really, really consistent because...
And what does consistency look like?
For us, it is
in a weekly cycle, let's say.
Weekly cycle is really about posting one video each day.
Each day,
Each day.
Right.
That is like a lot of work actually in the background.
Absolutely,
yeah,
yes.
Because you have to think about how do you create how do you strategize and how do you tie this to your brand story or your whatever you want to tell to your audience, right?
And also whether you're telling a continuous story perhaps, or you actually have different storylines when it comes to everything that you do weekly. Because then you're basically looking at 4 to even 5 times producing content, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I feel there are so many ways to do it. Because in essence, you know, some social media accounts, you know, when they focus on purely entertainment, they might create you know, a short drama, for example. But if it's not relevant to businesses, then it can be something related to their business. But I feel businesses shouldn't focus too much on promoting their products and services on social media. You know, it sounds a bit contradicting, right? But because people go on social media, so if you can find a way to attract those audiences without actually selling anything, that actually works better. Yeah. So that is why, if you notice, a lot of the corporate social media, they don't have high engagements because they kept on promoting their products, their services, and tell how great their companies are, and that normally doesn't resonate.
I don't think that works anymore,
Yes,
right? So
anymore.
I think, of course, you can see this with more traditional brands. They are very established. They probably have high follower counts just because of the fact that they most likely offer an essential service or a product, right?
Yes, that's
okay, so I'm really hearing soft sell. All right, let's move along from that arc into looking more at analytics and optimization. So let's say you're a Malaysian brand. You've been doing your homework. You've been producing those once a day content or videos. Now, what would be the best metrics or analytics to try and gauge whether this is impactful? And what are some tools that you have come across which are quite organic and easy to use, even for someone who's just having a small startup, all the way to those who are slightly larger MSMEs or even SMEs?
Yeah. Social media is really about experimentation because, as you know, user behavior changes all the time.
Sure.
Trending things are happening around the world. And of course, the thing that most people hate most would be the algorithm change, right? So those are the key things about social media. So in essence, as you push out your content, right? So sometimes when you feel that this content will perform, they don't. And sometimes when you feel this content is just an okay content, but then they go viral. So in order for you to measure all of this content, we normally take into account like the number of reach, engagement. Engagement really consists of, you know, the amount of likes, for example, people commenting on the post, and how many people are sharing the post, for example. And of course, you want to see the followers' growth as well.
That's right.
Yes.
You don't just want to see engagement, but
Yes.
is it usually the case that if you have a lot of engagement, that's naturally going to lead to people following you more, or is there some sort of like a distance between the two?
Well, it depends on the account itself, because you will notice, especially if you go on TikTok, right? You see some accounts with probably maybe, let's for example, the account has 10,000 followers.
Right.
But then if you see the amount of total likes, normally it's much, much higher, because when people find a content interesting, they may not be necessarily going to follow you, but they might see, okay, this is good content, I like it.
Or
So
maybe
that,
I share it.
or you share it, right? But you may not be necessarily liking, following that account. But for example, you constantly create content that is interesting, that resonate with your potential audiences, then they will follow you. And that's how you can actually build a very, very strong brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm not going to really ask you about timelines because I think it varies from brand to brand.
Correct,
And
yes.
across platforms as
Yes.
well. So let's go a little bit deeper into looking at advertising and monetization,
Yes.
because this would be the end goal, specifically when
right.
it comes to individual creators who are also small business
Yes,
owners.
yes.
Tell me more about that.
So if you look at the ads today, right, that is a very traditional way of pushing out or promoting your business. But the thing with ads, as you know, ads have very low conversion, and it's natural because, say for example, say for example you, and you're gonna start a product right away today, and you're gonna just say to people, hey, please buy my product. Of course.
So
I
that
feel-
would be more word of mouth,
Yes,
right?
yes, and then it's going to be like the conversions are going to be really low, because the thing is, maybe some people do not have no idea who you are, and you have not established the relationship with them. So that is why normally the conversion is low. But imagine if you're building a content that resonates with your audiences already, and you establish a relationship with them. So if you want to sell things, it is much, much easier. So what I'm trying to say here is, there is no wrong of running ads, but if you're building organic content and tie it up with running ads, it can be really, really powerful.
Right.
Yeah. So
basically sort of like taking the best content you've created and
Yes.
perhaps considering that to be the monetized advert.
exactly.
Right.
And whatever, say for example, if you have already created a viral content or content that has a lot of engagements and views, you might want to consider running that as an ad, which potentially may even push to a wide range of audiences and get you discovered, and of course, leads to sales.
Ideally speaking, is there any minimum for an ad budget? I won't ask you a maximum because that can vary again depending on the depth of your pockets.
Yeah.
Any basic minimum that you recommend?
Because for us, we don't normally focus on performance marketing, right? But I would say, based on my past experiences, when I was still running my own small business and running an SEO campaign, an SEM campaign, it varies. It can be, for small businesses, it starts from 500 ringgit or up to 1,000. It depends how much budget they have. But then again, it's because I believe in building brands. I believe in creating organic content. So that's why I feel businesses should also think about not just purely running ads. They should also focusing on building a long-term brand, and that which you can only do through organic videos or organic content.
Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And when it comes to building businesses, another area that has become a lot more popular these days is strategic partnerships,
Yes.
be it with brand ambassadors or be it also with other adjacent brands.
Yes.
An excellent example that I can think of is actually the recent partnership that the NBA went into with National Basketball Association in America with Skims, which is Kim Kardashian's
Yes, correct.
intimates and loungewear line.
Yes.
Now, it's super interesting that these two seemingly opposite brands can somehow come together and at the same time cause a huge splash
Yes.
in the athletics and athleisure market,
Yes.
which is incredibly large, right? So tell me what you think about Malaysian brands and how they have been positioning themselves so far, and also the willingness to collaborate strategically.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more of that, or is there still some hesitation when it comes to our market?
No, in fact, it has been happening in Malaysia actually. The great thing about doing this kind of collaboration, right, because it opens up new opportunities. Especially if, say, for example, you're an ice cream company and you probably want to collaborate with a company that sells dates. And if you think about 2 years ago, a great example would be Inside Scoop and Yusuf Tayo.
Yes,
So
for sure.
you can think about these are two totally different industries, right? One is ice cream, one is dates, basically, and they have their own sets of audiences.
Sure.
So when they combine, it basically opens up new opportunities to reach out to brand new audiences. Say, for example, audiences from the ice cream company, you know, they get to see or get to know the brand from the dates company, and vice versa. And if you look at the global context as well, just like the one that you mentioned, there are also examples like Adidas and Lego. So totally different industries as well. So I feel that Malaysian businesses should do that more often, because it will create a lot of buzz. Because it is novelty, people probably have not seen it before. So that will create a lot of attention on social media.
Exactly.
And I truly advocate that. I actually, when I run my masterclass as well, I would advocate businesses to do that. Yeah.
So moving in from buzz though, Richard, of course with buzz, there sometimes comes the opportunity for, well, least favorite word of brands, controversy. So let's now look at moving into risk management as well as compliance.
Yes.
So let's start off with the big one, which is always a concern for brands, right? What are some of the main potential risks and the challenges associated with also being heavily invested in social media strategy, and how best can brands be prepared for it before something occurs, so that they already sort of have their SOP in place about what to do?
Yeah. Of course, risk will always be there, right? Because especially once your content goes viral and your content gets a lot of eyeballs from a wide range of audiences. And I think we can safely say that people have different opinions of things, and people might just, you know, leave comments and without sometimes understanding the whole context. So I think for brands, in order for them to be prepared in those kinds of situations, they have to think thoroughly and work with people who are familiar with risk mitigation and people who have been probably in the PR industry, because they know to sort of like predict what's going to happen. So it's good to work with people who have done it. So at least from a content creator perspective, right? So normally when we create content, so once the contents are ready, we will just, you know, think about, okay, if we push this content, will it be controversial, right? So we have to always think from that perspective. If it yes,
and trying to balance it almost,
yes,
right?
Yes. But again, I feel businesses, as long as they stick to their core values, they shouldn't be worrying too much.
Exactly.
That's what I feel.
And what do you think about the way in which usually during the period when some kind of content is going viral on social media, often what happens is it descends into a little bit of a battle space in the comments section.
Yes, of course.
So how ought the admin or administrators of the social media handle for businesses perform when it comes to replying to comments? Should you ignore them? Should you have a standard response that you copy paste? Which would be the best way to manage it?
All right. Yes, of course, we have seen this before with some of our clients, you know, some of the content that went viral. It's actually very straightforward content. And sometimes, you know, as I said, it will attract a wide range of audiences and people will have opinions, right? But I feel if the comment doesn't bring value to the conversation, I think we should just ignore. But if they give a comment that gives a constructive feedback, I feel, you know, people should respond, and I think the admin should respond accordingly. And sometimes you have to acknowledge, sometimes you make mistakes, right? And what I really want to advocate as well, you cannot portray this perfect looking corporate feel on social media anymore.
Right. It's not possible to control every single element,
Exactly.
is it?
Actually, vulnerability is it's a very important element to build brands, because then people feel that, okay, they're not a perfect company, but they're willing to admit their mistakes. And I feel I can trust this company. I want to work with them.
They're kind of human enough.
Yes,
almost,
they're human.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in this age of AI, right? So I feel we need to be even more human. Yeah.
Even more human.
Even more
Very
human.
interesting.
Yes.
Any thoughts on the fact that whatever it is, a lot of Malaysian businesses, if you just take a look at them on their various socials, they appear to be using AI-generated content.
Right.
What are the best practices around that, off the top of your head?
So for AI, right? You know, ChatGPT, for example. I know a lot of businesses.
Super useful.
Yeah,
yes.
people use that, but they should be regarded just as a tool. It shouldn't. Businesses shouldn't focus too much heavily on using it for everything, because the thing is, as I said, we need to be more human in our responses. Because if you look at some of the social media posts today, people will see, hey, this was actually generated by ChatGPT, and that makes actually even worse in many ways. So
you have a very productive social media feed, but people can tell the difference.
They can
right?
tell, they can feel it, because they know it's robotic, right? But a good way, maybe a good tip that I want to share.
Sure.
Because ChatGPT is actually quite an advanced AI technology, right? You can actually train it on how you write and how you basically, all the nuances on how you actually write and the kind of words that you use, you can train it. So if you spend time training it, and of course you have a good admin as well to manage your social media, I think they can be a really, really powerful combination.
Exactly. So I think it's all about having a sort of a duty of care towards your audience, but at the same time trying your best to manage and do that one posting a day.
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
So I want to move on into speaking about long-term growth as we close out the conversation,
Yes, sure.
Richard. So what is really important though is sustainability when it comes to your BCP, when it also comes to your identity on social platforms. So how can brands actually build and maintain a loyal social media community that is going to be there?
I can talk about this from my own perspective as
Sure.
I build my social media presence across all the different channels, right? One thing that people look for is authenticity. As I said, it is no longer about creating your perfect image online, and when people meet you, you're a totally different person. That doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work at all, actually.
Same for a brand. You can't be saying one thing online and then service is different when people come to storefront or purchase online.
Exactly. So
Right.
I see the importance for businesses to be able to communicate their values throughout the organization and to inspire their people so that when they communicate, it is the same way that when they communicate online. And that is actually a huge, huge challenge, right? As businesses grow, as they grow bigger, it's going to be a huge, huge challenge. But I feel there is a great need for companies to invest into that so that your brand messaging and your brand story and how you appear online remains authentic.
Exactly. And I think one dimension of this which deserves special attention is Gen Z, and in connection to that also Gen Alpha, who will soon have their own purchasing power. They definitely are displaying a clear desire for deeper brand storytelling.
That's correct.
Right? When it comes to like big highlight moments, okay, what's happening right now that has plenty of hundreds of millions of global eyes on it is the Olympics.
Yes,
I'm talking about the young runners especially, track and field athletics, Noah Liley and how he flashed a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yes,
At
exactly.
the, so things like this, it's almost like you want an inner story, an inside joke, something relevant, and is how do you get to that as a brand to speak to those younger audiences who are clearly very keyed into those kind of bonding moments.
Right. So in essence, right, whenever we create a social media post, normally we would focus on three things. Either the post is educational, inspirational, or entertaining.
Right.
But of course, for most people, they would go for entertainment-based content, right? So if you want to create those entertainment-based content, you need to be able to leveraging on trends. So that means you need to spend a lot of time on social media too, because that's where the Gen Z
pick up on it.
Yeah. So if you, I mean, it's easy to tell whatever content that you see that is trending, see how you can leverage on it. And I know a lot of companies in Malaysia, they do this very, very well, especially the bigger ones like some of the cinema accounts and one of the hypermarket accounts.
That's right.
well.
So catching up and staying
Yeah.
relevant. Richard, thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Yes.
This has been a fantastic conversation on
Likewise.
building real estate by
Likewise.
social media.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Speak soon.
Well, this has been Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. That's all we have time for today. Featuring, of course, Richard Kerr, Chief Storyteller with RK Digital. We'll see you next time with more business analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead. Okay, so we're in the background.